Hi, it's Peter from Foreground Performance,
And I am Ray Moaga.
and we are here to bring a new segment where we're just going to unpack. We've had a lot of questions around, Alani, you've had a lot of feedback, I've had a lot of feedback around the 4Cs. So obviously we have culture, community, corporate and connection. So today, brought to you by Lumbr, brought to you by Alani Networks Media, today we're just going to unpack culture, what it actually means, and just a quick segment, not a quick, but a very in-depth segment, very intentional, just around culture, one of them being one of the main 4Cs that we actually talk about.
Yeah. So what is it for you? So Peter, in our previous episodes, we often talk about culture and we've often asked our guests, and that could mean many things. But for you, in the space of what we're talking about here at Foreground, what is culture? What are you meaning when we're talking about culture? Because I feel like this piece is going to add on to what has already been said in the previous episodes.
Well, whenever we say culture, we always go, traditions. We go like, Pacifica culture, Indonesian or Asian culture, pop culture. The culture that we're trying to really talk about is the culture that we have in the corporate space, in your organizations, in your families, in your teams. What is going to be bringing, I like to call it now, it's culture in action. I think that's one way that I want to kind of, a bit of title to it or something. So for me, it's about culture in action, because we all come back from, different cultural backgrounds.
Yes.
But when I think culture, I think about high performance. I think about leadership. I think about strategic management. I think about all those standards that have been built from, to actually talk about those, those power words.
Yeah. So give us an example of what culture and action looks like for you. Like you've worked across elite sport, you worked in construction, you worked in youth justice, NDIS, you're a family man, you're a business owner with strength and conditioning. So what does culture and action look like for you?
Alignment, individuality in a way, and what you bring into a team or into like a culture or kind of area. One of the things I'll use is it's also by Sheen's. There's a lot of books around it, but around chance, right? Or when you come into a workplace, you kind of understand. We'll use Lumbr for example. I'm sure there's a way that you acknowledge people. That bit of culture of welcoming. Every time I come in here, it's like, hey, how you going? There's energy. That's a culture I want to be part of. Why are they so happy? You become curious. And I think that's one of the words that we use is curious. But for me, I'll use a real easy one. In rugby teams, chants, right? You think about it, people talking about, you have your jersey presentations, you have your chants, you have these artifacts that are part of teams, the action part, right? The next one is that I've written down here is espouse values, values around kind of understanding the culture. Because I think when you walk in, I'll use that example is I walk in, I'm very curious. I want to understand that culture. Again, culture in action. Yep. So it's a very very deliberate of coming into a space and actually understanding, again, being very curious. Yeah. That's my action word.
I think the thing that stands out for me as you're explaining that, it's three things. What does culture look like? So again, that's what it, like you're saying, if people are shaking hands. I know in previous episodes we've had people talk about when they come into a room, the tradition or the cultural setting was you shake everyone's hand, you look them in the eye, you greet them, how are you? And I've experienced that being at Sunnybank Rugby, and even in your sort of training sessions where you have young athletes come in, the first thing they do, they eyeball you, shake hands, hi, my name's so-and-so, good to see you. And so that's what culture looks like. So it's actually a physical thing that we can see. And sometimes you can't always put a finger on it and figure out what it is, but people are embracing. So I'm talking about the physical aspect. A bro shake, a handshake, you dap up someone, or it's a nice, solid, firm greeting. But if that is consistent day in, day out, and every time people are meeting, that's something that you look for, right?
Yep.
But culture is also what you hear. So what does it describe to me? What culture and action, what does it sound like if you're in these spaces?
I guess that warm feeling, but when you hear it, you can just see there's a tone to it, right? It's like when you walk into a room and you have a Foreground Performance coach, I expect this culture, I expect you to bring the energy.
That's the standard.
That's the standard. We talk about these standards. I expect you to be like, hey, what's up, team? Welcome.
Yeah.
It's that tone in your voice. It's also hearing the type of words like, how's your day? Having that care factor. that kindness is like not starting as like, oh, we're going to go do, 400s.
Sure.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
I'll be like, hey, hey,
That's too far.
yeah, too far. But, the first thing I'm also hearing is, hey, how you going? How's your day? Or how's your morning? Or what are you grateful for? So we start off like a culture piece every morning. It's like, wait, what are you grateful for? And in any situation, any area or any organization I'm working in now, I always ask. And I always get the, not this again. But it's funny. You go from, to, actually, no, I'm grateful for this. And then you actually see a different look or different feel. Or like, you see something kind of flick.
Yeah.
The pennies drop somewhere in that day, that person's day.
I think as well, Pete, in that moment, people are deciding whether they opt in or opt out of whatever your cultural sound, your bite-sized sounds like.
Yeah.
Like if you say, by the way you ask a question, the way you're observing of how they respond and what you listen to when they respond. And I think people are hesitant, or in my experience, when I'm being who Ray is and I'm greeting you and I'm warm and it's very visible that I'm coming in for either a good handshake or an embrace, like people are making a split decision, like just in an instant going, okay, if this is the first impression, this actually has to matter. And if this impression is just not just once, but twice, 3 times, it's like, okay, this is the standard. This is how Ray, or whenever I'm wearing this logo, they know that that's what the expectation is. So that's what it sounds like, right? So what does it feel like? Like you say, you described the word warm, right? And then we'll dip into other sort of definitions. But what does culture feel like in an organization for you?
Feels like, that's a real easy one. And that's the word I use. We've done the diversity inclusion. It's belonging. The culture that you belong is the part of culture that people most likely want to be a part of. You throw in I guess we're going to be real sport related. We love sport. I also love corporate. But the team that, there's a reason why people wake up and actually go to work at 6 a.m. every morning. But you don't just have one person. You have like a whole heap of people that wake up to go to this. I'll use that in the gym sense. Yeah, people that wake up, 5 a.m. to be in the gym by 5:30 or 6 a.m., right? Or meet me in the gym at 5 a.m. if you want to come earlier. Yeah. But, there's something about that feeling waking up. You feel accomplished. You feel satisfied. I'm going to use not so much the word happy. We don't use that word. Or we do. Don't get me wrong. Everyone has to use it. But I'm now changing that kind of language into that feeling of content. Being real content with where I am right now. And be all right. I didn't get that done, but I'll get it done tomorrow. But it's because there are other things that now, I guess, that prioritize my life. This is my personal, but in the team that, I get feedback from my workers, employees all the time, right? Or the staff that I have is, I feel like I belong, Pete. Yeah. I always get, Peter, you're so cruisy and composed, but also very fiery. We have to be. I have to be, we talk about that relational and transactional.
Yeah.
I'll be relational as anything. But it's if something that I do have like that line of like authority where I'm like, all right, let's be transactional.
Yeah.
Why did it happen? I'm not going to come down hard on you like, what the heck? It's like that. Again, that culture of belonging, I'm able to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And in my organizations.
Yeah. And with belonging, Craig Rochelle, author that I read, follow, and listen to, says that culture is what you model, what you communicate, or what you tolerate. Can I say that again? It's what you model.
That's bars.
Yeah,
that's a bar.
Bars. Yes, bars. I got one. Is what you model, right? Yeah. What you live out, what you're saying. Like that's that cultural, that belonging piece. What you model, what you communicate. Because it's one thing to actually show people what it looks like, but it's also how you communicate and what messaging that you are giving to your constituents, to employees, to employers, how you are living out that culture or that standard, as you say. But it's also, it could be in a reverse, is what you tolerate. So if you tolerate bad culture, guess what? That becomes the standard.
Yeah.
Right? And so you and I have been in organizations or environments, team environments, where you're like, how do people get away with this stuff? You shared a really good example just recently to me about the water bottle in the gym. Like that's something, tell us that what that looks like in terms of you tolerate that culture, but then repurposing that example and making it a positive thing.
Well, it's the standard you walk by is the standard you live by. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been, that's something that I live by, but I need to model it. So I can't just model it like as if I walk past a water bottle that's on the ground and I expect my team or my athletes or my teammates to do the same. If I'm going to walk away and not put it away, well, then I'm just telling them it's all right. But I think it's those 1%ers, because if I really care about everyone in my team, I'm caring about the person that's actually filled up those water bottles. And I think I'm very lucky now in hindsight of seeing that everyone part of the team, and I think you can become so, sorry about what, but I think we can become so very focused on thing that you actually forget about everyone that's involved. Being part of a team or culture, there's people in the background. Yeah, you might be doing, playing the sport and that. And I love that we're using sport as an analogy, but there is someone that actually filled up that water bottle, that actually put the water bottle in the crate. And then you're just going to drink it and throw it on the ground. That's disrespect to me. Again, the values I live by. So it's as easy as that. And it's funny though, when I was talking about it, is that everyone knows that I don't have to tell them, because it should be player driven or should be employee driven. These standards and values that we live by, if the culture is strong, I shouldn't have to harp on. I know that I'll use a real bad example, me doing my laundry, or forgetting to take out my things out of my pockets. Yeah, you keep telling me. I was like, oh man, I need to change this culture. So I'm now having a conscious effort for my wife. She's like, why is this in there? I was like, my bad, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Again, but I do it in a way with athletes now, or with people that I'm working with. It's like, well, hey, this is how you're gonna do it. Again, it's what you call it, Dave Maxwell, John Maxwell. Yeah, when we actually talk about I do, you do. Yeah, I see. Yeah, I see you.
I see you. Yeah. That modeling, that discipleship in other faith networks, but also it's about mentorship, right? Like modeling, and modeling is not, hey, look at me. It's actually like, look at me while I give you an example of how the standard should be. So modeling, communicating, and tolerating, whether it be a good thing, most times I think if you tolerate a certain culture, that becomes the norm. How do you go about then, Pete? How do we go about sustaining a positive culture? So you've already given us an example, but how is that done on repetition, and what does that look like, sound like, and feel like to sustain a positive culture?
Within people, it's tough. You got to wear a lot of hats. Yeah, you would know.
If you're human, we got to put up with each other.
Yeah, I'll use the most challenging part of what I've been doing now. We're at Ipswich Grammar, and you have all these superstar athletes. Very why should I listen to you when I'm getting coached by the Broncos or the Dolphins coaches and stuff? Yeah. But I think it's really interesting that we've created a culture, and this has been led by the head coaches as well, and we've just been very lucky that we can jump on that vehicle that they've created of you're not better than the jersey. I think once you understand that, again, taking that, there's a word that we use, is that entitlement away, and I think there's a lot of entitlement in a lot of cultures. I think if we take that, again, to go back to our real core basics around service, about servant leadership, you got to put that into kids, into young people, and they will love it. Because you understand, now I model it. I'm like, I'll do everything and anything for you to be the best version of yourself. But I need to make sure that you're going to be living those type of ways, those values, those practices. It is very hard to get someone. So I've got to make sure that I'm mentoring my coaches, my next protege, my next successor of my, Foreground or whoever it is, or whatever organization I'm part of, to make sure that they have the same attributes. If not, I'm going to have to hire a whole heap of people to make sure they have these attributes that we talk about. But the hardest part is, finding the right people to be able to deliver what you're doing. So I've been very, very selective of who's going to be part of our culture circle. I've approached you. There's a reason, there's alignment. You make me accountable, I make you accountable. Yeah. There's things that there's a lot of good synergy. Yeah. We don't just jump in like, hey, let's go start a podcast. Oh, let's go run these workshops in leadership and management and, expect that it's going to be good. Yeah. There's a lot of that trust currency that we talk about that that you've actually introduced to me. I was like, damn, there's a currency to it. Yeah. There's all these things that, again, finding the right people in my team, or or if they don't have it, I've got to put them in situations to build it. Yeah. To build the resilience, to build the reflection, to build the leadership.
How do you identify? How do we go about identifying, finding the right people? Because when I go into teams, sometimes I didn't find them; they're just already there. Yeah. So I guess there's this, I wouldn't say tension, but the challenge of how do I add value? How do I add a good cultural piece to a team that currently exists versus, and I don't know if versus is the right thing, compared to building a team from scratch. Can you speak on both? Like, what does it look like? Let's go build a team from scratch. And the reason why I use that example, just last week, I saw you interview 2 people for your organization, and I can actually see it. And I was like, okay, cool. What are you looking for cultural people, like to I say talent identification, again, sport analogy, but what are you looking for in that if they are going to be a good fit culturally for your organization?
I think I've been burnt heaps. You know, like I talk about, everyone sees all the successes, like, you know, all the success, but no one's really seen the journey or seen my failures or my like learnings. You know, there's been a lot of learning, a lot of burnt bridges, but then I've actually learned how to repair those bridges. You know, that there's a bit of a framework around like triangles, like trust repair triangles that we actually deliver.
Share us a little bit about it, because that's just not a passing comment. I feel like that is pretty pivotal in terms of that triangle.
Yeah, so you got to kind of obviously, so when you have a situation that happens, right? So what I do, say something. So
Pete's drawing on a book, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, so I'm drawing on a book. So you have a situation, right? I'm just going to draw a circle. Yeah. That's the situation. You got to build a triangle to repair it. And you got to keep building that triangle until, you know, you actually kind of come up with this and it's real simple. It's around, you know, the behaviors, the situation, and then the consequence, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah. So behaviors, situation, and consequences.
Okay. And a consequence can be good or bad.
This is Pete's artwork, in case you're wondering. I don't know if you can see it.
I don't know if you can actually see it, but
yeah.
But I think, you know, when a situation or something's happened, a bad situation's happened, and then you're actually trying to, and this is something I've kind of adapted into myself. So this isn't my own framework. I've just kind of gotten it. I like it. I like working in shapes. It's real simple. You either work in a circle, a square,
or a triangle. Not a hectagon.
No, there's way too much going there. So for me, I always draw a triangle, and like it's interesting. Everyone's like, "Why do you?" Because something that like people look at me, I'm like, I always sometimes have like, say I get a bad phone call, or like, you know, a bad phone call, something at work happened, right?
Yeah,
I will draw on a piece of paper, a triangle, and I'll just keep doing this. It's actually interesting, and this is my own framework I've built. And like, these are some of the secrets I'm sharing, because everyone's like, this is my own. This is what I do.
This is an exclusive. So if you're going to copyright this, at least give credit to Pete's Triangles.
Again, it's not mine, but it's just something I've adapted and made it my own, because they just usually like throw this like triangle up. But what I've done, I've like kind of made it practical, made it operational, functional for myself.
Yeah.
So I draw this triangle. I'm like, all right, what's the behaviors I want to have? Is it positive or bad? And like, we'll keep it real simple.
What are the structures? What are the consequences?
Yeah. So this is the situation.
Yeah, situation.
What's the behaviors that's actually led to that, and what's the consequences?
Yeah.
All right. And then, so there's that circle, right? And then I put in my stuff. I'm like, well, if I do this, this is going to happen. If I do this, this is what's going to happen. If I do this, this is what's going to happen. So you work
within the parameters of that, and you just keep going around in a circle-like formation, but you're following the boundary of the triangle, and if you can go either way, you can go across. Okay.
Yeah, and that works for me. Okay. Again, it might not work for someone else, but what I've kind of done, I was like, well, this is functional for me.
Yeah.
And this is how I'm going to get the best part.
Got you.
All right, so that's how I'm going to repair relationships, how I'm going to repair things. So, because you just never know when you're going to need someone. You know, I think Lauren said it the best around, you know, it wasn't a broken relationship, but it was a professional relationship that, you know, they were going this way, he was going this way, next minute. Hello, Howard Smith Wolves. We're the owners.
Yeah. And now we're down to Manly doing the same thing.
You know, big business. Yeah. Again, he was real genuine and real cared. And again, I use this framework for myself to be like, and I can share this as well. So this is something I'll share at our workshops and that. But again, this is just something that I've always just lived by. Again, to repair a relationship. Again, the consequences are going to add on. There's obviously levels to this. So there's small triangles and there's a bigger triangle. So to deal with the issue, the real core of a relationship, or something that's going to really break a relationship, professional or personal. And then I look at then the biggest part of like, how do you recover? What's the consequence of recovery?
Right.
So there's one to deal with it, and then there's one to actually have recovery, and what's the next steps. And then you have this bigger triangle around the transition. So it's kind of like, what's his name? not Tuckerman's model around building teams at that morning stage and that transition stage. This is my triangle.
So it's like triangle upon triangle upon triangle. So again, there's infrastructure, there's systems, and I know I don't want to lose our listeners to go, man, there's so many shapes and sizes and whatnot, but it's the same shape, but just applied at different levels depending on what the consequence is, depending on what the support system is. Go, okay, here's another triangle. How are we going to ask these questions? So that's in the framework. So what I asked you earlier was, what does it look like to build a team in culture? So now, what does it look like to add value to a culture that currently exists? What are some of your go-to tips when you're coming into an environment where the culture is already established? Whether it be a good or bad culture, what do you do in order to add value to that culture? What are some of the things that you have seen and have done for yourself to go, hey, how do I insert myself into this culture, bringing this triangle layer of model into that?
Yep. To be honest, when you're coming into an organization, it's so much easier to build a team from scratch because you kind of understand. You can actually really lay the foundations real quick. I think coming into a new space, you got to find out who's who in the zoo, find out what works, what makes them tick. A lot of things, like there's like a 360 review you can do. There's a tool you can use. I've used that many times. And it's around the same thing. It's like when I get asked to go into organizations to actually, hey, Pete, can you come just do a quick review for me? I was like, yes, very easy. I just do it because I'm like, from really good mates of mine that are like, yeah, Pete, can you just come help? And I've been able to practice and actually, hey, these are some of the areas. So I just got to understand when I come into an area, new place or new organization is who's who. How can I use this person as leverage? I don't like to use that word, but if something, you got to understand who your decision makers are, who the people of like great leverage. Those type of things come up and pop up into my head real quick. Not so much in sports, because sports I've been like, part of the same club. I'm quite loyal to like my rugby clubs. I've been part of one rugby club, Sunnybank Rugby. So coming in, like use that. That's already got so much culture. When I actually can transition from a player to an coach, that was so tough because I had to establish all these different values and different views and come into like wear a different hat. And it's so hard to actually then, build this, add culture or add value. Like what you asked is like, it's so hard to add value. I think, and I've struggled in the past. Now chuck me in, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm confident because I'm real genuine. I know who I am and I know where I'm going. Again, build from really good culture. I know what it looks like.
So for me, it's a similar operating system in the sense that when I'm going into a new culture, a new organization, a new environment, I go, there's three things: the who, the why, and the what. Who am I before I go into this? Like I have to ensure that I'm comfortable being in the skin that I'm in, meaning I'm okay with my identity. I'm okay with my lived experiences. I'm okay with just knowing what I know now and bringing that into an environment. So again, the reason why that's such an important piece for me, the who piece, because if I'm uncertain who I am and what value I'm bringing, then that means at any point when someone challenges or pushes back or just probably just disagrees with something that I'm saying, if I'm insecure and I don't know who I am, that makes me second guess the knowledge or the wisdom or the information that I know. I'm like, oh, I don't think I should say that again. But knowing that who I am is so important. And that's the identity piece. And we often talk about that in Foreground Performance in a lot of the, your athlete program, but just in an organization. So when you and I go somewhere and present, we are 100% confident in who we are. And we are unashamed to share with people in an authentic way, saying, I'm Ray, he's Peter, husband, we have families with this cultural background. This is our lived experience. There's a difference between arrogance and confidence. And I think being confident in who you are, I often believe that sets you on a good trajectory or a pathway on building relationships. So that's the who piece. The second piece, I go, what's the why? Why is the culture the way it is? Why is that person in this culture? How did they come to be in this culture? So for me, it's actually being aware, discerned, and going, what's the feeling in the room? Who's in the room? Why? How did that person get there? And what kind of influence do they have? So for me, I ask, so why is the culture the way it is? So once I establish that, again, it's talking to people, It's looking them in the eyes. It's listening to how they talk. It's seeing how they treat one another and going,
the behaviors. I think
it's
that's
the behaviors thing.
Yeah.
So we're now adding some visuals to this, right? And once I understand the why, how that culture is, then I go, well, what can I add?
Yeah.
That's the value piece, right? That's the value piece of going, okay, I know that when I go into this environment, this is what I'm going to bring. So to give you an example, I shared with you offline about I love the sport of touch football. For me, I'm now known in most circles or most teams as raise the hype guy, but not hype in the sense of like energetic and slapping people on the back and hyping them up, and like I do all of that eventually.
Yeah.
But it's knowing that Ray brings an unspoken value of encouragement and empowerment in the way that I speak, in the way that I behave. So every team that I go to, if I notice, and again, I think you were talking about the water bottle example, if I notice there is something that I can add, I don't wait for permission. I actually insert myself into that environment, into that cultural, that subculture, whatever it is, and apply myself. So for example, if I'm in a new team, and we're in the huddle and we're talking about strategy, how we're going to score tries, and how we're going to defend, how we're going to attack. And I noticed that as soon as we finish, the team just starts to go onto the field and some of us on the sideline. I'm that guy that goes, yo, hold up, come back. And everyone's like, what's happening? Who's this guy? I'm like, hands in. Team on me. 1, 2, 3, team.
Let's go.
Do you know what I mean? So those are little like 1%ers.
Yeah.
For me, I call it the 1%ers. You can call it whatever you want. But I know I'm not doing that for the sakes of kicks and giggles and like, oh, I want to be that kind of, the quote unquote traditional hype guy. But I know by doing that, Mel Robbins, she wrote a book about it, I think it was The Power of High Fives. Yep. She's also written another book called Let Them Theory, which the world is now caught onto. And it's amazing. But the whole purpose of the high five models, we actually need human connectivity. We have conditioned ourselves in a society, and I say this in the Western society, to withdraw and withhold from genuine connection from one another. So not only is it like, hey, let's do this, there's a social buy-in of like putting your hands in together, but it's like, let's connect. Like I can feel skin to skin, like that, like that's us. Ooh, already I can feel your aura.
I think like, I know we've spoken about, that it's interesting, like, because science doesn't change. The thing is, it's the people that change, and the way science doesn't change, right? There's so much evidence around it, evidence research, but the people change. In organizations, environments change, everything, situations change. You got to be a really good problem solver, especially in culture, and then you also got to be able to adapt real quick.
Yeah. Once
you figure out and solve that problem, because I think that's where you get judged on in these leadership roles when we talk about, oh damn, this happened, but Peter didn't deal with it properly. You're like, damn it. Then you go reflection, you're like, oh, I could have done it this way.
Yeah.
But I think if you have, like, again, you go back to your process. Now I'm going to put on the corporate hat around, there's a system here, you got, and I've written here, right here, is embedding culture in systems.
Got you. And
it's how do you do that? So you got to align, again, you can talk about all the feel good stuff, but then if your standards, your systems, and, so I say it again, your standards, your systems aren't on par, or the standards not there.
Yeah.
You just watch these like really great organizations that have like 1 or 2 years and they just crumble. So I'll use Foreground, for example. When we first established, that's what we had to learn real quick. When you're dealing with young people, dealing with schools, we have to have policies, child protection policies, and people don't realize that. There's a lot of things that...
think it's a straightfortard job.
So whatever. I can go work with kids. I can go do this.
How did you get that grant? How did you apply for that? How did you guys get that?
It's not they just fell into it. No, we've had to hustle, and it's a hustle, especially in the corporate world. Mm-hmm. So right here, you got policies, procedures, rituals, and, those are the main ones. And then you can share your stories on how you actually got those things sorted.
I'm interested in what you said before. What did you say? It's something embedded in systems.
Embedding culture in systems.
Embedding culture in systems. The way that I see that done is threes. Like you love triangles and shapes, I love threes. Things that come. So it's a lot easier for me to remember. And by embedding a culture in a system, there's three things. If you're, and I'm wearing my leadership hat, pun intended. If I'm to establish a new culture or a culture, it's three things. One, I have to be clear about the standards, right? You're embedding this into a system. I have to be clear about what it is that I'm actually trying to establish or what is the outcome for me. So I have to communicate that. And I said it before about communication. Yep. Number one, I have to be clear. The second thing, I actually have to, I have to reward. So if I have to reward the behavior. So if I'm clear in my messaging and everyone around the room is nodding, are we good? Any questions? No questions. And then my team goes on to play out the task. I have to also reward their behavior. By rewarding them, it's like saying, congratulations, or I love the way that you did this, or they are upholding the standard. And that's why you have certain things such as Employee of the Month, or like the Best Worker of the Month, or just in general. If you don't have that in your organization.
Even just monitoring like surveys.
Yeah, just monitoring.
How do you feel?
However you do it. But for me, it's like you actually have to reward behavior. And it's a principle, it's a concept. I don't even say it's a principle concept. It's something that we do in teaching. As a high school teacher or as an educator, you have to reward good behavior. We're so in the default of like focusing all our attention on the bad behavior, but we forget there are people in the room that are doing the right things. So reward behavior. And the third thing is you also have to correct it. Correct when that culture or when that sub-value is not being held. So again, can I say it again? So there's
we did chess.
So we have to correct it. So that's the last one. We got to reward it, but we also have to be clear about what it is that I'm calling people to. So it's one thing to call it out, but I need you to call you forward into the standard of practice, the system that we can embed culture. So I think as a leader or in any space that I've operated in, if I'm clear about that, if I'm rewarding behavior, but I'm also calling it out or correcting it, I think that goes a long way to establishing a healthy, thriving organization, but also healthy, thriving cultural piece.
I think there's so much to that around rewarding behaviors. And again, going to circle back to around how we do it. Like, obviously, you've done an education piece. It'd be so interesting to know, like, with someone else that's come in with a corporate background or in different areas in industries, right? And how they've actually embedded that culture or that cultural system. You know, because I've written here, so there's Kotter's 8 steps in embedding culture. So the reason why I also said around doing surveys, like, you know, something when you said, oh yeah, you got to do surveys and, you know, you got to reward. But the reason why you do a survey, you've kind of have to identify, again, people don't like change as much as we want to make change urgently in culture, you know, because there has to be some cultural change, especially if you're going to add value. So you got to make it urgent. You got to show why the change is needed now. And you got to do it properly, especially in corporate world or even in teams, you got to do a performance review. Well, once you identify, because everyone talks about it, I think now what we have to do, you got to lead by your actions. Yeah. What we do really well, we talk about things. That's what I used to be good at. I used to have the gift of the gab, but no framework, no structure. You know, I've had to learn.
That's me every day of the week.
Yeah, so that's still me. But I've actually come to know it's like you've got to lead with actions. Yeah. You're going to say what you're going to do.
Yeah, and I can see it and I can hear it in your voice. I think one thing that I'm mindful of as well when you're getting people to buy into culture is I read this quote and it says, people don't resist change, they resist loss.
Yeah, that's massive.
Let that sink in for a bit. People don't mind, people are okay with change, but it's actually the loss. What are they losing out of?
Yeah.
What's something that they're now losing because you've embedded or created a new culture? Is it a loss of identity? Is it a loss of friendships? Is it a loss of finances? Is it a loss of power and control?
Yeah.
Again, in the spaces that I worked in the last 15 years in the faith community as a church minister, I'm working with volunteers. So when you're trying to implement change, and again, it's the catchword in our church spaces, when we're trying to implement change, let's do something different. No. People's identity are attached to whatever thing or whatever decision it is. So it's not only that they're attached, there's what are they losing? Because there is a sentimental value to the thing that you're trying to change, but they can't
100.
articulate it.
That's why you got to give them very tangible situations. So like, it's like, if we don't improve, we will fall behind.
It will look like this.
It will look like this, and we will fail.
Yeah.
But if we implement this, it'll be effective. It'll be more efficient. So you got to use your words, and the delivery of it has to.
You have to paint the picture.
You got to make it urgent. So that's step one.
Urgent. Yeah.
Step two is build your team. You got to have the right team around you.
Yeah.
As I always say, I can't move forward unless I have the right team. Obviously, I know where I am, but in a team sense, I got to build a great team. I approached you. All right, you're one of my Avengers. Let's go. We talk about the Avengers. I have this group. So if you're listening, I have this group of people that are my Avengers. So that's step two. Step three, with those Avengers that I brought in, all those great leaders, all those great people, even like some of the people I've headhunted or poached, I'm like, sweet, you got to set the vision for them. So them coming in, they already know the vision. They're probably asking themselves, how can I add my value to this vision? All right, you got to get people on board. All right. So you got to get everyone involved, whether they're volunteer, they're a paid employee, everyone in part of the organization or whatever the culture is or that person, everyone has to be on board at whatever entry level. It can be the janitor, it can be the person that does maintenance, it can be your CEO that pays all the bills, your payroll. They have to everyone has to be on board.
Everyone has to be on board.
From A to Z. Right? Number 5 is always the hard one. It's you got to remove the roadblocks. Ooh. All right, number 5. And then you got to fix the barriers that stop people from acting. All right? Yeah. And sometimes it might be people that you don't align. And you
that's the lost piece, right? We're changing. They're like, no. It's like they feel like they're losing out on something, and it's going to be uncomfortable, right? When you remove the roadblocks. And what was that other point again?
Oh,
the one after roadblocks?
After the roadblocks, the barriers.
Yeah. So barriers. So what? So the point after the barriers, which was
getting people on board.
Getting people on board. So to get people on board, you have to acknowledge and be mindful that what are they losing out on, and that's that piece that we connect those two things together.
So boom, and once you get that, remove the roadblocks. You're gonna have these little wins. You got to celebrate those little wins. You always ask me,
reward.
Hey, that reward. You got to celebrate it. But what happens is we celebrate those little wins way too much sometimes, especially when you're really inexperienced. So I've learned.
No, I'm just thinking out loud.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But those wins are good, Peter. So again, I'm playing not the devil's advocate. It's like, but what? You're telling us not to celebrate the two?
No, so you got to celebrate
the
little wins. But you can't get stuck at them. You got to keep pushing forward. You got to understand that these are little wins, but we still got to, the vision's been set, the direction's been set, the goal. Yeah. All right. You got to celebrate the wins. That's number 6. Number 7 is you got to keep going. You got to keep pushing through. All right. Again, this is Cotter's. You can look this up yourself, guys. So this is just 8 steps from Cotter's model. All right. And use wins to push further. All right. For further change, don't stop too soon. All right. Because sometimes we can get real complacent off these little wins.
Don't stop too soon.
Don't stop. So you got to celebrate. Celebrate. All right. Got to celebrate, but you got to keep going. And then the last one, number 8, is make it stick. So embed the change into culture, policies, and everyday habits. That's corporate learning. Again, we talk about culture and teams and stuff. I guess in the corporate world and organizations, these are the 8 steps that can make, your culture change. And it's real simplified. There's obviously, I can elaborate a lot more. But again, we get stuck. So part of that is that a lot of us get stuck at number 6. But then number 7, is always, you got to keep going. Don't get me wrong, feel good stuff's real good. But you got to keep going. I'll use for rugby, you might win a premiership for that year. But that's not the end. You got to keep going. There's also next year, or there's still another 5 seasons to come. What are you doing to keep going to, level up or, to professionally develop?
Yeah, and that's in the context of if you buy into the culture.
Yeah.
See, the high context will be like, hey, this is a sustainable winning culture. This is what we do. This is a premiership is cool. That's just on the way to a journey. Like that's is again and again. And it's not, I don't think it's about championships. I think it's the building the right culture. So it doesn't matter if you're winning or losing. You're sitting in that culture where it's like, it doesn't matter how we're performing on the table. Yes, aesthetically, you know, people are looking because it's the currency of people and popularity and success, and that brings in people. But it's like if you have a great culture, people don't care because they know that they're all in for this particular for this subculture of like.
You can think of so many teams, like in the like highest levels, international teams, even community teams, or even like I bet anyone you'd know exactly the touch team that you want your girls to go play for because you know the systems, the culture's great, this and that. That's what you have to look at. I think as a professional now, those things that I've brought, there's so much we could talk about, but I'm actually going to cut it there. Because if you want to know more about our culture and about, we can talk about this all day. But
so that's what we're basically talking about. Every time that I know it's taking this long, they're like, oh, so you talk about this culture, and then now we embed it into our interviews. So again, I hope it does offer a bit of variety and understanding what we are talking about, but also some practical points, because I think for you and I, this is an integral part of our lives as an individual, how we live our lives, but also in the corporate space as well, where we go. When we talk about culture, we're talking about value adding. We're talking about accountability. We're talking about all these pieces, the 8 steps, the 3 points that Ray keeps talking about. We're talking about the triangles and the circles and the squares. Like it's all that. So it's not just a well-rounded definition. I would say it's a robust definition.
I think we want to make sure that Ray and I keep talking. Not talking to the audience, to our listeners, to our viewers. One of the big things is that we do this because we've been in this space for a very long time, and we've got so much to share, so much scope around leadership, management, business, corporate world, community, everywhere, right? Connection, culture. I think what this is really, the value of this is to actually educate you all and actually to reach out. If you want to get in contact with us, follow us on the Foreground Podcast, follow us on Foreground Performance, follow Ray, you can follow myself.
Just follow.
But that's our segment done for unpacking culture.
Yeah.
What's culture to us, not just from a traditional point, but to the corporate world. Innovative to everywhere, and actually giving you guys a few models as well.
Awesome.
Have a look, man.